In our biggest story today, I regret to inform you that one of my viewers can no longer watch the channel due to my tendency to shrink down to mouse cursor size and float around like Peter Pan. No word yet on how this person feels about my choice of using default OBS timestamps for the file name as my actual video titles, but I'll be sure to keep you updated. In less important news, Intel has been finally issued a statement regarding the stability issues for 14th and 13th gen CPU stability issues. So let's talk about that. How about we just jump into their actual statement? So if you watch my last couple of news videos, you should be well informed about what's going on here. Basically, lots of people reporting stability issues, lots of people speculating about the causes, including it being motherboards running the CPUs too hard out of the box. And that appears to be Intel's take on the matter, but they said they will give a follow-up. Let's actually read the full statement. So we have, Intel has observed that this issue may be related to out-of-specification operating conditions resulting in sustained high voltage and frequency during periods of elevated heat. Analysis of affected processors shows some parts experience shifts in minimum operating voltages, which may be related to operation outside of Intel's specified operating conditions. So again, they're saying it's operating outside of the default Intel specified operating conditions. They're saying while the root cause has not yet been identified, Intel has observed the majority of reports of this issue are from users with unlocked or overclock capable motherboards, and Intel has observed 600-700 series chipset boards often set BIOS defaults to disable thermal and power delivery safeguards designed to limit processor exposure to sustained periods of high voltage and frequency. For example, disabling current excursion protection, enabling the ICC max unlimited bit, disabling thermal velocity boost and/or enhanced thermal velocity boost, additional settings which may increase the risk of system instability, disabling C states, using Windows Unlimited Performance Mode, and increasing PL1 and PL2 beyond Intel recommended limits. In other words, Intel's saying it's the motherboards running too aggressive settings out of the box, at least according to their initial testing, or at least that could be the most likely issue as of their understanding of the issue right now. They're saying Intel requests system and motherboard manufacturers to provide end users with a default BIOS profile that matches Intel recommended settings. So that's the big thing is, so a lot of these motherboards just run the CPUs at crazy high levels out of the box, and that is the default setting. You build your PC and that's just how it's running. And they don't even necessarily include an easy button in the motherboard BIOS where you can just say like, take everything back to default settings. Now, honestly, it should probably be the other way around, where the default is the default, and then there should be a one-click easy auto overclock. But anyway, they're requesting that motherboard manufacturers provide end users with the ability to quickly switch over to default settings. Intel strongly recommends customers' default BIOS settings should ensure operation within Intel's recommended settings. And in addition, Intel strongly recommends motherboard manufacturers to implement warnings for end users, alerting them to any unlocked or overclocking feature usage. Intel is continuing to actively investigate this issue to determine the root cause and will provide additional updates as relevant information becomes available. And Intel will be publishing a public statement regarding issue status and Intel recommended BIOS settings setting recommendations targeted for May of 2024. So basically, to summarize all of that, it's what a lot of people were speculating, that it seems like some motherboards are running the chips crazy aggressively out of the box and it's not stable. Intel's wanting motherboard manufacturers to at least make it easy for people to switch over to recommended settings. However, again, note that while this is their first official statement on the matter, they're saying that May 2024 is when we get a follow-up, when maybe they've had more time to investigate this issue. Now, I can just report on what's going on here. I don't have an affected CPU, so it's hard for me to do any personal testing. Plus, on an issue this widespread, that might depend on individual silicon quality of individual chips. I just don't have the ability to test a lot of this myself, so I can just report on this. I will say, though, that there are some people reporting issues even at default settings, although that seems to be less common. So I'm curious what the full picture of this entire issue will be once there is more information available. Please note that that does mean that if you switch to Intel baseline profile, which some motherboard manufacturers have already enabled, like Asus, compared to their original auto settings, which were much more aggressive, that can result in performance loss, like we're seeing here reported an 8 to 9% performance loss. We're also seeing Gigabyte Z790 boards have added an Intel baseline profile as well. So these baseline profiles are starting to roll out. So if you're having stability issues, it would make sense to check when or if your motherboard manufacturer has released one of these baseline profiles. Try switching over to that. And sure, you might lose a bit of performance, but that's probably worth the increased stability. But anyway, this has also brought up a lot of questions about, how should CPUs be reviewed? Are they being reviewed at the motherboard's auto, aggressive settings, or at the, baseline profile settings type things, all of that. So interesting questions raised by all of this. But I want to talk about an AMD GPU thing, or at least how MSI plugs into it. I should have warned you about the flashbang here. Hardware Lux apparently has a very bright background. So I saw this at Hardware Lux, and they're following up with MSI based on a tweet they saw from Hardware Unboxed. So Hardware Unboxed tweeted, "Did I miss this story? MSI has been completely removed from AMD's Radeon 7000 series. All existing products have been discontinued, and they never released a 7700 XT, 7800 XT. This all seems to have happened very quietly." So that's a tweet from Hardware Unboxed. Hardware Lux then reached out to MSI for comment, and they got a comment. So this is what MSI told Hardware Lux. And by the way, all my sources will be linked in the video description today. So you can follow up on any of these for more details if you'd like to read the original sources. So the quote from MSI: "When it comes to graphics cards, our focus at the moment is actually more on RTX cards. Nevertheless, the collaboration with AMD is essential and extremely relevant for us. We see a very positive development, particularly in the area of main boards," or in other words, motherboards. So if you read that, what they're basically saying is they're just more focused on NVIDIA GPUs, and they are not focused on AMD GPUs. When they're saying that their partnership with AMD is essential, they don't mention GPUs at all. So this clearly points to MSI abandoning, at least for now, AMD GPU cooler models. They don't say why that's happening. They do say they still want to work with AMD, but on motherboards, and they're still doing GPUs, but they're focusing on NVIDIA cards. Now, if you look at overall sales numbers, I mean, obviously NVIDIA is still vastly outselling AMD in the GPU market. So is this just a economy of scale issue where it's just more profitable for them to target the larger market, and maybe they're not seeing the profits there on AMDs? I'm just kind of speculating here, but that is the official statement from MSI regarding this issue. It certainly does raise some concerns. But also in NVIDIA news, we do also see some reports that certain NVIDIA SKUs are also having trouble producing large volumes. It's looking like 4060 Ti GPUs are experiencing a supply shortage on the actual chips to manufacture the products. Now, this is less solid, direct quote from like last one was a direct quote from MSI, or we had a direct quote from Intel. This is a videocards.com article that seems to be sourcing their information from Board Channels, which is a forum that reports on a lot of info kind of gleaned from manufacturers like Gigabyte, MSI, Asus, Colorful, but it's not like direct official statements from the companies. So I would say take this one with a bit more of a grain of salt. But this one is saying that at present, the supply of the RTX 40 series of various brands, here I'm going to make myself mouse cursor size. Deal with it, I'm flying like Peter Pan. Anyway, at present, the supply of RTX 40 series of various brands is still in short supply. For a certain main model, the RTX 4060 Ti series, there has been a major supply problem. That is, the supply of each brand has been greatly reduced. Several major graphics card brand manufacturers, such as Colorful, Taiwanese, and other brand manufacturers within 2 weeks of April, the supply of the RTX 4060 Ti series at the brand factory supplier has decreased significantly, and each shipment is only a few dozen. For quantities ranging, this says ranging from 50 to 50. Anyway, I'm not sure if that's a translation issue, because I think this is machine learning translated. I could be wrong. Anyway, the needs of most agents cannot be met. So it sounds like some issues there. Now, I'm curious what's going on with that and why it's the 4060 Ti in particular. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if as you get closer to the 50 series launch, there did start to be some reductions in production on the 40 series so that you don't have an oversupply of the 40 series when you get to the 50 series launch, in the way that the last generation of GPUs was kind of disrupted by the fact that there was kind of an overproduction during the crypto boom from AMD's 6000 series and NVIDIA's 3000 series, so that when NVIDIA's 40 series and AMD's 7000 series launched, they were having to compete against the previous generation products that were still widely available. And I think that kind of messed with the whole pricing structure and everything like that. But again, it's curious to me why it would be the 4060 Ti if that was the reasoning behind this, because all signs point to NVIDIA usually starts with would probably start with like a 5090 and a 5080 launch and only eventually trickle down to the 4060 Ti's. Maybe they weren't selling and so they need to try to just correct the supply chain or something like that, except it sounds like people that agents wanted more but couldn't get them. So maybe that's not the issue. I don't know. Just thought I'd report on that. Thought it was interesting. Now, last few tidbits for today's video. One is that apparently Manor Lords is blowing up as a big indie hit on Steam. Now, this is still in early access, but it's reaching 160,000 concurrent Steam players on day one of launch. This game looks pretty interesting. I haven't tried it out yet, but it looks like it's kind of a city building in a medieval setting, but also with some like RTS style elements to it. Again, I haven't actually played it myself yet, but looks fairly interesting. And those are big numbers for Steam, considering it's also available on other platforms, including, I believe, Game Pass as well. Now, another thing I wanted to mention is it looks like Dragon's Dogma 2 has a mod now that adds path tracing, but it's not really added through the mod exactly. It's more like enabling something within the engine that you couldn't access without the mod. Now that looks pretty interesting. However, if you look at the screenshot here showing it off, it looks very grainy. So I was looking into this, and actually as I was researching this, Digital Foundry happened to post a video investigating this mod specifically. So I'll just, again, link things in the video description so you could take a look at it. And basically, first of all, as expected, path tracing is incredibly demanding. An RTX 4090 at 4K DLSS performance mode, again, DLSS performance mode already, drops down to 20 FPS at the most aggressive settings, but that's with a large number of bounces. If you're down at 4 SPP and 2 bounces, you're at 42 frames per second, so more playable. And 1 SPP and 2 bounces at 93 FPS, so much less of a hit. The problem is these get grainier and grainier and grainier as you go. This is more visible in motion, but I'll let you take a look at this video. The theory presented in the video, which did sound pretty accurate, is that this path tracing mode is more of a developer tool to get an idea of what ground truth images might be lighted like for while they're in the development process, and was never intended for actual player use, both from a performance standpoint and an image quality standpoint. Because the reason why these are so grainy is because there's no denoising available. So if this was going to actually be a shipped feature, you would need a better denoiser. Some kind of denoising, and also certain elements weren't lit properly because, again, it seems like this wasn't ever really developed to the point of being used. So I would say this was more an interesting curiosity that you might want to check out, but probably wouldn't be the way you'd want to play the game. But I'm curious if more modders could do something with this. Would it be possible to introduce any kind of denoising filter or any improvements to the scenes that are not correctly lit using the path tracing mod? That would be kind of interesting. And while I usually focus on PC news, I do touch on new console information as well. And we just got a huge list of new Nintendo Switch 2 rumors hitting the market. And I want to mention that this is rumored category, but when a bunch of them hit from a bunch of different sources all around the same time, that tends to point to there being some actual information that just hit certain points in the supply chain. Because, as you get closer to launch, more and more people are kind of aware of what's going on, right? So we're seeing that we could be seeing the Nintendo Switch 2 in the second half of 2024. But again, that's not confirmed. And the OLED version already in production. Now, where is that information coming from? This is apparently coming from a leaker who is well known as getting information correct about Samsung products, not Nintendo products, but wait, the Tegra T239, which is, again, rumored to be the chip in the Nintendo Switch 2, is produced by Samsung, and the display for the OLED model is supposedly a Samsung OLED. And so, again, the initial models could be an LCD model released first using a Sharp display. But anyway, so because Samsung would be involved in this production, if these things end up, are true, then a leaker who has information on Samsung stuff could have some knowledge of what's going on here, right? So that's kind of what we're seeing there for that source and information, but that's not it. We're also seeing Nintendo Switch 2 won't be as big as the Steam Deck, which would, match kind of how we are currently, right? The Switch is not anywhere near as big as a Steam Deck. And new Joy-Cons will be released, but and Pro Controller compatibility from the previous generation. A lot of this was detailed in a Spanish language publication, Vandal, but it's also been corroborated from other sources, and I believe this one actually hit first, although the other one was covered more. So I'll take a look at this one. So the idea behind this would be that they're saying their partnership with Nintendo's supply chain is the source, right? So as parts are supplied for Nintendo products, again, people in that chain would be knowledgeable and could leak out some of the information. So they're saying these are their main points that they've been able to confirm, but once again, this is leaks and rumors, so take it for what it is. Okay. Anyway, the Bluetooth chip of the Switch 2 still supports existing Joy-Con and Pro controllers. So in other words, if you have Joy-Cons from your Switch, they will still work on the Switch 2. Again, if this rumor is true. Pro controllers as well. But it doesn't look like they will actually attach to the to the Switch 2. So in other words, it would support it in wireless mode, but you're not going to be able to attach your Joy-Cons to the new Switch 2. Anyway, the volume of the new Joy-Con motor will be smaller, and anyway, if it's a little more details on compatibility with certain products there. The cartridge slot on the Switch 2 will support backward compatibility with existing Switch game cards, both physical and digital. However, new game cards designed for the Switch 2 will not be compatible with the original console. So basically, the original Switch can't play Switch 2 games, but the Switch 2 should be able to play Switch games, but not only digitally, but also through physical media, which is interesting because some people were speculating on whether or not that would be the case. It says in handheld mode, the new Joy-Con rails will adopt a horizontal magnetic docking structure for smoother attachment. The SL and SR buttons will be metallic and magnetically activated, but again, because these have a new docking structure, that would mean your older Joy-Cons from the original Switch would probably not be able to attach to the new Switch. The Switch 2 will retain a USB-C port for docking, compatible with the new generation of docks featuring minor design enhancements. The redesigned dock will include a metal damping bracket for improved angle adjustment. The screen will be upgraded to 1080p resolution and slightly larger dimensions. So it can be nice to get that, just kind of side note, it can be nice to get the additional resolution on the handheld screen, but that also does mean things are harder to run than if they had stuck with 720p. So something to think about there. But anyway, in essence, the Switch 2 represents a conservative evolution of hardware resembling a refined Pro version of the Switch. We are excited about the developments, ensuring compatibility with existing games, also blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so that's the information that seems to be out right now regarding the Switch 2. And again, it is still in the leak and rumor phase of things, but we are certainly probably at the point where the leaks and rumors become more solid and trustworthy as, like I said, the supply chain stuff has to start to know things, and then that information gets out there. Hopefully you guys found today's video useful and or interesting. Huge thank you to viewers, channel members, commenters, subscribers, channel members that click the join button to directly fund the channel financially. Huge thank you. No, not everybody's in a position to do that, but definitely thank you to anybody who does. And I hope all of you have an excellent day.